Hey everybody, welcome to the final episode of the assassination of Gianni Versace pregame show here on the Fifth Column Network. Yay! Super excited because for those who have been watching this pregame show, you know I have hated it since about episode 2.5 this season that it started to go down womp womp. And so I'm so glad that it only went 9 episodes and last week was the finale. So of course, since we are a pregame show, tonight is the last episode of the recaps, the fact checking, and the final thoughts for this particular season of American Crime Story. For those that don't know me, I am Trezanay. I am host of Prime News that goes on Mondays and Thursdays here at the Fifth Column Network. I'm editor of FCN One, which is all things news, business, and politics. And so it's fitting that I would be doing this show. I'm not going to waste any time because I'm so happy tonight's the last night. So we're going to roll right on into let's do a recap of the finale of the season. I will tell you that it is basically all about Andrew Cunanan's final moments after he does the killing of Versace until he kills himself. It is a long, drawn out process of him going from being on top of the world, at least in the sense of killing Gianni, and then to the point to where he is completely alone as he's trying to evade getting captured. The actual episode title is called Alone because that is certainly where he ends up in his final days. So here's the quick recap. We start off the episode revisiting the scene where he's on the beach and he sees Gianni going to his big mansion in Miami, and we see that final shot again, and so we revisit that particular scene, and then it goes into the scenes of him actually enjoying seeing the murder that he committed being covered all over the news. So we got a little bit of glimpse of this, of course, in the first episode when he's in that banana boat canary yellow outfit after he just murdered one of the most famous people in Miami, and he's gloating walking down the street in bright yellow and fantastic shades. So we're seeing that again in this final episode where he literally is enjoying the fact that this final murder that he's done is getting all of this media coverage. Okay, and then we see him transition into even more like of a narcissistic sense of just pride and joy when he realizes that the police and FBI know he's the suspect. So he sees his face on TV and he literally says, "Oh my God," like he says it just like that. He's drinking champagne in somebody's boathouse and celebrating the fact that the FBI have him pegged for the murder of Gianni Versace. It's ridiculous. And then after that, we see him trying to leave Miami because he's all over the news. And we see him trying to steal someone's car. Well, not trying, he actually steals someone's car. And he literally packs a bag and he's on his way out of Miami to continue living this glamorous life that he has made for himself in being the murder suspect of this high profile murder. And this is where we find out that he really didn't think this last murder through at all. And I think it's really because he's been killing gay men for a few weeks, you know, like he's killed 4 people so far and there's been no media fuss. And the police really haven't made, you know, a huge effort to really come find who killed these gay men, because I think the show really tried to show that gay men weren't worth any media attention. They weren't worth capturing. This is like just kind of like a black on black crime, if you will, if you understand what I'm saying. So let them kill each other type of thing. And this particular time, it was much more than that. And Andrew Cunanan definitely did not think about that as he was trying to get out of town. And so after that, we see that he cannot get out of the city of Miami because there are checkpoints everywhere. You can't get on a freeway without getting in line while police are checking ID for who's in the car. So he realizes at that moment he's not getting out, so he actually goes into hiding. And that's where we see Andrew Cunanan start making fatal errors, if you will, leading up to his capture. So the first thing we see is he's got to find a place to stay. He's got to find a place to hide. So the episode shows him going to like boats, trying to find boats that are open and people aren't in them. So he can actually find not only shelter, but food. So he can't go to grocery stores because your face is all over the news. So you see him in this one particular boat where he's trying to find something to eat. He found, I think, a bag of tortillas. So he's eating like dry, unwarmed, not warmed up, unsteamed tortillas. He's just eating those in this random boat that he's come upon. And in the episode, he actually is caught almost on this boat. Like someone thinks, it's a woman, she thinks her lover or her husband is on the boat. And so she calls out to him. So he hides in the boat. When he realizes that the woman realizes that someone's in there, she calls the cops and he escapes. And then he ends up on this houseboat, like this really huge house that is sitting on the water. That is vacant, if you will. Like there's a little bit of food in there, there's TVs, there's whatever. How he knew that this was vacant, we don't know. I'll talk about that a little later when we start fact checking. But he ends up being in this huge vacant houseboat where he is hiding but still eating the food in there and everything. But it turns out that he's in this houseboat for so long that he ends up eating everything in this houseboat. And there's this scene where the only thing left in the house to eat is dog food. And he ends up eating all of the cans of dog food because he's so hungry. But that's neither here nor there. So we see him when he is in that first boat on the water and the police are called, right? That was his first error, because now people are suspecting that it could be Andrew Cunanan, who was trying to find a place to hide and be on a boat and maybe try to get away from Miami. That's one. The second error that he makes is actually in the houseboat, where the caretaker of the houseboat, not the owner, but the caretaker, comes to kind of check on the property because there might have been some type of report that someone is there and it wasn't the owner. So he comes there and Andrew Cunanan fires a gunshot in the houseboat and scares the caretaker, who leaves and calls the police. That was a huge fatal error for Andrew Cunanan because the police definitely were called out to the house. And then there was a third major error. There's a point where after he's eating dog food and he realizes he can't leave because he'll be noticed and captured, he makes a phone call all the way to the Philippines to call his dad, Modesto Pete Cunanan, and says he's crying. You can see him almost morph, if you will, back to the very little boy that he once was, and basically crying out to his dad like, hey, I need you to come get me. I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. Help me, help me. And his father on the other line is like, oh, Andrew, you know, I love you. I'm going to come get you. Pack a bag. I'll be there in less than 24 hours. You know, I have charges pending from when I left, but that's okay. I'm going to be there. I'm going to catch the next flight out to come get you. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to love on you. And you just wait. Go pack a bag. I'll be there and you wait for me. And Andrew's like, okay. Andrew tells his father exactly where he is, exactly the address of the houseboat. And this boy really goes back to this houseboat and packs a bag, his books, and his passport, like he really about to go get on a flight when the FBI has him as a wanted man. So those are his three major errors in the episode, if you will, leading up to his capture. After that, it's basically the police come and it's all about his suicide, where he's surrounded by police, he's surrounded by the FBI in that houseboat. His father never comes, because we all knew that was going to happen. Modesto is the con artist of con artists. He is the narcissist of narcissists. He definitely is the bigger player in the game. He taught his son the game. And so we all knew Modesto wasn't coming. And it's really funny too, because there was a point where Andrew Cunanan knew he was truly alone, because after his father promised to come and get him the next day, his father was on TV giving an interview to major news outlets saying, yeah, I talked to my son. We talked about the movie rights to his life and his life story. Yeah, I talked to him just last night. We were talking about the title for the film. And at that moment, Andrew knew that his father was not coming to get him. He ends up shooting the TV in the episode, and that's when you basically see him preparing to kill himself in that houseboat. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. There is one final scene which was important, and it transports us back to a scene we saw in episode 1, if I'm not mistaken, the Opera House. where Gianni and Andrew Cunanan met. So if you guys remember way back in the beginning of the season where they meet at the opera, it seems like Andrew is very charming and is actually charming Gianni Versace into a relationship, into something more. And this particular ending scene in this final episode shows us how it really ended. And the way that it really ended is that Andrew Cunanan was like, oh my God, let me be a stylist for you. Let me come work for you. Let me do this. And Versace rejects him. He rejects him politely, but he does reject him. And in this moment, you see that he was not charmed. He was not convinced by anything that Andrew was saying. I don't even think that he really believed what Andrew was saying. And at that moment, it's almost like he called Andrew out on his BS and his charm, like it's not going to work on me. I'm a man of hard work. I'm a man of truly of fashion. You need to figure out what you're going to do with your life, and it needs to be real. And you can see in that moment that was just a pivotal moment for Andrew Cunanan, where he's like, what? Like, I can't believe you just rejected me. And so that's how the actual episode ends and the season concludes. So that is basically the recap for that final episode. I don't know if I like the way that it ended, and it's mostly because it's the same complaint that I've had, the Revolution has had this entire season, that the story has just been told in the weirdest order. It's been chopped up and kind of just, I don't know, what's that, Rubik's Cubed, if you will. The story is kind of all over the place. But that's how it ended. I don't know if I particularly like it. With that said, though, you know, I had to fact check what was going on in this episode. Oh, wait, we have some comments over here. Oh, just hellos and thing. Oh, Stacy and Nikila. Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching, y'all. Appreciate that. Okay. So I fact checked some things, and I don't even know why I fact check anymore. Like, seriously, I do not know why I fact check, because everything that is pivotal in an episode turns out to be fake. Everything that you think is like a critical moment in Andrew Cunanan's like behavior or whatever, it's all fictionalized. So here's what was real. Okay. So there was definitely an FBI manhunt, right? Okay. Of course it was. The suicide that they showed, the way that he did it, he actually shot himself in the mouth in his bedroom. That was all real. And the houseboat, that was all real. And so I actually found out that it was owned and abandoned by a German businessman. His name was Torsten Reineck, who ran a gay health spa in Miami. So even though he wasn't actually in the country at the time that Andrew Cunanan was in it, he owned a gay health spa. So it kind of led me to believe that Andrew Cunanan, who was a socialite, okay, like make no mistake about it, probably knew that this man was not in the country. He was also wanted for fraud himself and embezzlement, if I'm not mistaken. So the owner of that houseboat was totally nowhere to be found because he was avoiding charges on something himself. So I'm thinking that Andrew knew that it was vacant basically by just kind of keeping his ear to the ground in the gay community. So let's see what else. Oh, about that houseboat. The caretaker did indeed show up. There was a shot fired. All of that was accurate. The one thing that we didn't see though in the episode was that the caretaker of the houseboat, his wife was with him. They don't show that at all in the episode, but his wife was with them. And then the other thing that was true was they said that they found that houseboat tore up when they came and found Andrew Cunanan. It was filthy. They said it was so much trash everywhere, and they definitely saw the eaten cans of dog food. So none of that was made up. That was all at the crime scene. It was all taken as evidence. All of that was true. Here's the stuff that was fake. The call to his father. Like, one of the better scenes. It was all fictionalized. There was no evidence to show that he made a phone call to his father. There was no evidence to show that his father made any promises of trying to come get him. There was no evidence of him trying to get his father to come rescue him. They did have evidence that Andrew did call someone, but they don't know who it was. But they do for sure know it was not Modesto, his father, and it wasn't Lizzie either. Because in the episode, his best friend Lizzie, the white girl that he met in middle school, and we saw maybe in episode 2, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2, he didn't make a call to her either. So yeah, that was Wrong. Let's see. What was also fictionalized was the confrontation on the boat. So when he was on the boat eating the tortillas and trying to, see if he could steal that particular boat, and the woman confronted him and at least came in contact with him and realized someone was on the boat, that was completely fictionalized. Which I think the Revolution, when he saw the episode, he said that can't be true at all. It was not, because I'm pretty sure he would have shot her dead if she had indeed confronted him with that gun. And then there was another thing in the episode that I haven't mentioned that was fictionalized. So before I tell you what that was, let me tell you what the scene was. So of course, in every episode, as I've said this entire season, there's always a moment of confronting the LGBTQ/homophobic issues of the 90s. And so we see in this episode the actual funeral of Gianni Versace. And the focus of the whole funeral was how his boyfriend Antonio was treated so poorly throughout the entire time. So we see that his boyfriend, who thinks that upon Gianni's death, he's going to be able to live in one of the homes Gianni owns. And then he learns that those homes were actually owned by the company and were governed by the board of the Versace company. And so at the end of the day, the boyfriend is left with absolutely nothing. He has no rights, no civil rights, no marital rights, no legal rights to anything. So he's left completely alone, completely destitute. He has access to nothing. And then we see him getting dissed by the priest at the funeral. And it was so bizarre to me that the Catholic Church, who has done so much with regards to sexual assault and what they would consider to be sexual sin, diss the boyfriend of Gianni Versace at the funeral because they were in a gay relationship. It was so bizarre. But that was definitely the LGBTQ issue that was highlighted. So at the end of, near the end of the episode, you see that after the funeral, Antonio tries to commit suicide by taking a huge handful of pills. Turns out that didn't happen at all. The man was certainly going through depression, but he was like, I did not try to commit suicide. I never took any pills. I never tried to kill myself, which is absurd that you could take a real life person and make it seem like they tried to commit suicide on a show. Like, that has to be somewhere close to defamation that you would make something up like that someone would try to commit suicide. I find that to be actually morally terrible, if you will. But that was also fake. So again, like, I don't understand why these particular liberties are taken in a story where you're trying to talk about something true and something real, that you would take liberties to fictionalize certain things like that and making them so critical to the episode. Like, I'm not understanding that logic at all. Okay, so with all of that said, I don't really have like a whole bunch of final comments about this season, because I think every single episode I've made it clear that this story has fallen short because of how they have told the story. Sure, the title is a misnomer. I can understand why they wouldn't have wanted to title this the Andrew Cunanan story, but on the other hand, I feel like it wasn't a great choice to title this The Assassination of Gianni Versace, because it was so much about Andrew Cunanan and it should have been so much about his life, and they did focus quite a bit on his other murders. And so I felt that that was just a really huge mistake outside of just choosing the story itself for this second season. I think my biggest takeaway from this season is, for those who don't know, listen, I'm kind of new to the whole thing of storytelling as it comes to like creative storytelling. Definitely a newbie when it comes to like comic books, superheroes, and that kind of storytelling. But one thing that I have discovered about myself is that I love villains. I fall in love with the villain. They are always my favorite. They probably have been my entire life, and I just never acknowledge it. And there's this article that I found once that talked about, and it was for writers, it was a checklist for how to write the greatest villain, how to write a great villain. And I want to kind of read some of these characteristics on this checklist because I do think that this was present in this particular season, but there were a couple of things missing, and I want to talk about that. So the villain characteristic checklist. Number one, he's convinced he's the good guy. Andrew Cunanan certainly thought he was the good guy. Number two, he has many likable qualities. Andrew did. You like it when this villain's on stage. Absolutely. Absolutely loved it when Andrew Cunanan was on screen. Another one, he's clever and accomplished enough that people must lend him begrudging respect. He's definitely clever. He was an amazing conversationalist. He was charming. People did like to be around him, even if it was for a short period of time. So I thought he definitely met that. He can't be a fool or a bumbler. He certainly wasn't that. He should be occasionally kind. He can be merciless, even to the innocent. We saw both of those. He's persuasive, certainly. He'll stop at nothing to get what he wants, certainly. He's proud, he's deceitful, he's jealous, and vengeful. Listen, Andrew Cunanan met all of those. Here's two characteristics on this list where I had to give pause. One is he has many of the same characteristics of the hero, just misdirected, and he's worthy enough opponent to make your hero look good. And I'm trying to figure out in this entire season, who is supposed to be the opposite of Andrew Cunanan? And then my other question was, I shouldn't even say question, I think it just highlights what we've been saying this entire pregame show is the storytelling in this season did not do Andrew Cunanan as a villain any justice. Should have started with that episode of him and his father. It would have really given us all of that context of who he was, how he was groomed, how he was treated as a kid, how smart he was, and just that whole transition from that little kid to this final man who ends up killing Gianni Versace and killing himself. That is where I'm at with this particular season. It just did not do this villain justice. I know that there were some producers who were like, man, those last couple of episodes really humanized Andrew Cunanan. Yes, because villains are humans too. They're not some type of one-dimensional box of evil. They aren't. They are humans too. And I feel like this whole season just got that entire thing wrong. And if Versace was going to be the hero, because I'm like, the FBI wasn't the hero. They were just bumbling idiots the entire time. The LGBTQ community wasn't the hero. Like, who's the hero? Versace's the only person they even tried to position as hero. And they even did his entire storyline completely bad. Completely bad. And you can see them struggling with trying to create the dichotomies and the juxtapositions between the two characters the entire season, and they just botched it. If anything, I will say that my final conclusions on this season is I'm not even upset that they even chose this particular story. I think they could have done it. But man, I think one word is that it was just completely botched. You know, I don't have anything else to say. Producer, you have anything to say back there?
Well, when you said that when he fired at the caretaker was a misstep, I don't think that was a misstep. I think that was his the beginning of his suicide. I think he made it up in his mind that, hey guys, this is where I am, and he needed help in pulling the trigger. He really needed help in pulling the trigger. He could not kill himself. Just going up there and just killing himself. That's one.
I can see that.
The other thing is, have you ever read the book Vanity Fair?
No, I have not.
Do you know? Are you familiar with it?
Nope.
Okay. There is no hero. Everyone's a villain. Right? And this is kind of like that. And I think they try to go for something and a contemporary take on that and how this world is. And I think that to try to do the non-linear edits, much like you know what made Pulp Fiction successful with the non-linear edit?
What?
Was the title card in front of each different story.
Okay.
That, listen, for everyone that was new to this format, was like, oh, they could follow it. They literally could follow this new format that they were being introduced to that was very what was it called? Cinema. What was it? Cinema Verde, Cinema, whatever that was called. I can't remember. We had to learn that as, right? But it was this new style, noir, right? And so the title cards really helped us because all it was is films are shot out of order.
Right.
Films are not shot in order. And so to keep it out of order like that was so breathtaking, and it was unusual, and it was fun, and it was so different. And this television show was just so jarring to us as the viewing public to go, what's going on here? Like, we just saw the ending of this whole thing. Like, we saw Gianni, at the coroner's office.
Right.
We saw, like, we literally saw, and we saw him go on the run.
Right.
We know how this ends. Episode 1, like, I was like, what is going on? I mean, we saw Donatella be disgusted with the boyfriend. We saw everything play out. So I didn't know, like, okay, why should I stick around? And there was nothing, like, if, say for instance, someone just watched that, there was nothing to reel you in to say, hey, no, stay tuned.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
There was nothing to say, no, you're going to learn about Andrew.
There was nothing.
There was nothing.
No
there was
clue.
Nothing there. There was no idea, like you said before. There was no juxtaposition. That there was absolutely nothing there. Right. So that was that. I do think that this was a really good episode. I thought the last 3 episodes were really, really good. I thought they were really, really good. I just, like I said, I would love to re-edit this to tell a story, and it wouldn't be wholly linear. It would just be in a different.
That's right. In a much better, different order.
It'd be in a different order, kind of like how Godfather was redone for the Godfather saga. But yeah, here's the thing. Let me ask you this question. You mentioned this, and I didn't want to interrupt. Do you think that Andrew Cunanan, if you Google Andrew Cunanan right now, how many stories come? Like, because can't you see how many numbers of his name comes up on Google? Like, how many? Like
the number of articles found that you can click on.
Like, I wonder how many comes up when you Google Andrew Cunanan as opposed to Googling Johnny Versace.
Let's see real fast though.
Okay.
Andrew Cunanan. All right. So, oh man, maybe it doesn't tell you on a mobile device.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Gianni Versace and it doesn't say. So I think that the public just didn't know, even right now, doesn't know anything about Andrew Cunanan. And it's still pretty bad. And again, to follow, you should have had something as sexy as O.J. Simpson. You needed something huge to follow O.J. Simpson.
And this wasn't it.
And this was not it. This was absolutely not it. And like I said before, they took Biggie and Tupac to USA, and I've said the only thing for me that was as sexy was Kurt and Courtney. I think that was sexy. Because that's a great whodunit. Like, you know.
But it's again to a whodunit situation where we don't know who it was, and you have the room to give us all of these different theories and play them out of who actually could have killed him.
Or was it a suicide, or was it foul play? Like, so, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the next season. Supposed to be about Katrina. I actually just watched Spike Lee's documentary, When the Levees Broke. So I'm interested in seeing how they do American Crime Story Katrina. So that remains to be seen. With that, I thank you guys for watching every week this pregame show for this less than stellar season of American Crime Story. You guys can see me on Prime News every week, Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. here on the Fifth Column Network. If you haven't, like, subscribe, and follow us. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at / The Fifth Column Network. You can find news, business, and politics on FCN One, which FCN_1 on Instagram and Twitter. Let's see, today is Wednesday, so tomorrow's Thursday, so Prime News will be at 7 p.m. followed by Thursday Wind Down, hosted by Starla K. Mathis, and then True Baller Thursday with the Reggie Mathis and a guest host because J. Cole is actually out on a special assignment. So again, like, subscribe, and follow. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. I'm Trezanay, and I will see you guys all tomorrow for Prime News at 7 p.m.
You had one comment on Facebook.
Oh, what?
Selena White says, the storyline was watered down in my opinion. Definitely toned down. Versace character, very watered down. Andrew character was also fickle. I wasn't sure whether or not to feel sorry for him or fear him. Let's be honest, Andrew was a madman, aka serial killer.
Man, but that's the best closing line, man. I wish I would have saw that before. Man, great comment, Selena. I appreciate that very much. Pin that to the top.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Love y'all. I'll see you guys next time.